All right, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I got a special guest, Mr. Nick Bland from Nick Bland Fitness. He helps busy people lose up to 25 pounds in 12 weeks without giving up carbs or happy hour. Sounds like a good plan to me. Thanks for coming on the show, Nick. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I feel like, you and I both were coaches in the online trainer mentorship, but we haven't had a lot of like chats, just like the two of us.
hmm
So that's why I kind of like doing the podcast, just to really jump in and learn about you and what your story is and that sort of thing. And that's where I love to kick off, is just kind of what got you into fitness in the first place. I always
Mm.
love to know people's origin stories, if you
Yeah,
will.
yeah. I've loved fitness since I was little. Baseball was my first true love. I actually played college baseball. Fitness was always kind of on the side, something that I loved doing. I was limited on the way that I like to work out and stuff just because of baseball. Um, and so pretty much long story short, when that ended, my college baseball career ended, I really started getting into more fitness stuff and education. And I have a bachelor's degree in kinesiology. So that kind of kicked it off. And then I ended up getting a personal training certification 2016, and then since then I worked in a couple gyms. Growing up, I kind of was actually pretty skinny. And that was something that it was always like, I got to get more and more and more. And so I ended up, as I grew up into my, late teens, early 20s, I gained a lot of weight, gained a lot of muscle, and that was awesome. And then I kept gaining weight and I
No.
kept gaining weight and then had to swing far the other way. And I was like, all of a sudden, like a lot heavier and not happy with where I was at. So then at that point, I just started kind of researching, and I was still really big into fitness. So I was very active, um, workout wise, and that was never an issue for me because I loved it. But for me, it was the food and like
Mm.
learning how to do that. And I was even under the impression, like I didn't necessarily think, oh, I had to do some sort of fad diet, but I was under the impression, I had to eat really clean and I had to eat but I love food. I grew up loving food, and so I was like, okay, how do I do it? So I started just learning about the basics with calories and some macronutrient stuff and different implementation, things like that. And I just saw, weight and fat fall off of me. And at that point, I was like, man, this stuff is actually not rocket science. And, just more education, more time working with people in the gyms and stuff. I started simply putting together just like a few PDFs of how to culminate all this stuff together, systemize it for people, start selling them. It's kind of like out of my garage, not really because it's online, but just selling them just like really cheap. Here's PDFs on how to do this stuff, and really believed in it. And then I had other full time jobs and stuff like that. And then since then, it's just crazy to think back on that because just what has this grown into for me, and so that's kind of my background now, that led me up until the last 2-3 years
Mm.
into starting really the business I have now. So
Yeah. It's always nice to kind of hear the growth. And I find when I have to tell my story, it kind of gives me that little, like, I guess you call it ego boost of like, wow, like I have come kind of a long way. Or, when you're
mhm.
when you're in that day to day, you're a family man, I'm a family man, we're running our own business. Sometimes it's just like I don't have hair to pull out, but you're
Yeah.
pulling your hair like, well, what
uh,
the hell's going on? But you tell your own story and you're like, wow, like I've been through quite a bit, and I've grown, as an individual. I want to backtrack though, because I love talking to athletes, especially outside of my sport of preference. But what led to you not playing college basketball, baseball anymore? Like what happened throughout there?
yeah, so that's actually kind of a long story, which I don't need to go in too much of the weeds, but basically I got hurt. I got burnt out. It was like a whole thing. About halfway through college, I ended up quitting and then coming back I have a master's degree as well. So as a grad student, I came back and actually played a fifth year. And so I just finished because I was finished at that point,
Yeah.
done with school and that kind of thing. And so, anyways, what's been cool is like, I mean, growing up, it was always like, I want to be like a Major League Baseball player, a professional baseball player. And that was kind of a dream of mine because I always felt like, man, I want to do something bigger, with my life. I don't want to just, I mean, if you want to put it this way, like work a normal 9 to 5 job or something like
Hmm.
that. So, obviously, it's a different realm, but I feel like in some ways I'm able to do that and to help impact people and not work a normal 9 to 5 job because I just
Yeah.
don't feel like I would do very well with that. So, um, yeah, that's kind of how it ended. It was just like, yeah, college
It's kind of
ended,
just done.
and yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I joke about, I don't know, I think I saw a tweet or a reel about I didn't want to work a 9 to 5, so I started my own business and now I work 24/7.
yeah, exactly, yeah,
Because
exactly.
I always just talk about, tell my mom, I'm like, I can't see myself sitting in an office all day. Like I've seen her go through it, and here I am, how many years later, and I sit at a desk all
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
but
it feels different when it's your own, right? And
yeah,
you're doing
absolutely.
like I'll work, 16 hours in a day, but I don't want to work for somebody else. Like I'll do
Yep.
it for myself. So
Nice.
there's a
Yeah,
different
that's
mindset, but
and
yeah.
the type of work too, like we're what we are doing in fitness, and not to, I'm not belittling any other careers, but it's like we got to follow a passion that we had, right? We
Yeah,
both through
exactly.
sort of similar stories. In your weight gain and then like too much weight gain, did that interfere with college baseball too, or that was all after the fact?
That was during the time. I wouldn't say it negatively impacted actually my performance too much. I mean, it was more I got bigger, and in fact, a lot of the reason why I tried to gain weight, when I was younger and skinny, was like I wanted to be bigger and stronger for baseball and just in
Mm-hmm.
general. Um, and so I wouldn't say God, but it was timing wise, it was about then. And then when I was done with baseball, that's when I could really focus on, my fitness
Fitness.
journey,
Yeah.
and then that led to coaching too after
Yeah.
that.
And that was gonna be my next question is what led you to want to coach people in fitness?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the biggest thing is like, I just feel like there's only a couple things I always say, I always joke. There's only like two things in the world that I actually know anything about, and it's baseball and it's like fitness and now fat loss and stuff, right? Nutrition. And that's it. I don't know. Ask me other questions. Obviously I'm joking, but in all actuality, like it's just a super big passion of mine in general. And it was like, to me, it's a lot more. I mean, it's cool to see your own transformation, but then it becomes like, okay, this is not about me. Like there's so many other people that need help. And going through my own transformation, my own fat loss transformation specifically, realizing, man, this stuff, yeah, it takes diligence and hard work, but it's not like this crazy rocket science complicated thing that a lot of people want you to think, and like the industry wants you to think. And so I was like, I got to start telling people about this. And then I get energy from people, and I get energy from being able to help people with, this area of specialty, from me. And so that's that's kind of how it led into that. It wasn't even necessarily like, oh, I want to be a coach when I was younger. Like it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
even like that, but it just kind of turned this passion and how I like talking and working with people, and then it's kind of come together like this.
Yeah.
So
I find that happens a lot, I think, with athletes. Like I think we're used to kind of that community that we have, and then when it's finished, it's almost like you want another one. And fitness and sports kind of go hand in hand. And if you've gone
yep.
through your own transformation, at least this is where I was at, is like I want to help people with theirs. I want to help them avoid all the shit that I went
Mm-hmm.
through, all the mistakes that I made. And then there's nothing that's more almost fun than like busting myths with people and getting like to like, holy, you can have donuts and lose fat. Like, what are you talking about? It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like this unspoken truth. How have you found navigating myths with clients, both past and present, helping them with that?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a really cool thing. I think if I can get people just to believe enough to be like, okay, I can actually do this and actually put action towards it, um, then, it's not even a matter, and I don't take it personally, but like sometimes it's one of those things. I do it too with other topics where it's like you hear someone say, you trust what they're saying, but until you actually go through it, you
Mm-hmm.
actually experience it yourself, you don't fully buy into it. And so that's the most gratifying thing to me is okay, just let's just try it. Like you can have some chocolate, you can have some alcohol, strategically, and you will lose fat. No, no, I don't think okay, just let's just try it. Let's just see and then we go through it. And sure enough, obviously fat loss takes time. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
it's like this overnight thing, but they realize it's kind of this reinforcement of holy cow, I can do that. And it's like I trusted you, but now I really understand what you're saying. And so that's probably my favorite thing is yeah, myth busting, like you said, helping people push through limiting beliefs. And I think kind of going back to the original point too, like I feel like in this space and in our area of expertise, like I feel almost like an ethical obligation to help as many people as we can because just the way our society is and the way that a lot of big, bloated, ugly companies frame things, market things, confuse people, and just the way that everything's set up these days in with food and like I feel almost like an ethical obligation to help as many people as I can to add on to why I feel like I like
Hmm. I love that. I never looked at it from that perspective. It makes sense because the industry, and it's funny because I talk with other coaches and we talk about this industry even though we're in it. It's like we're the change makers. We want it to be different and not. I don't know about you. I almost never recommend supplements for people because it's always kind of like that thing that they're being sold, but it's always that thing that they don't need, especially in the beginning. So it's
yeah
always helping them work around. Oh, what about this? What about this? And I'm like, look, let's work on your sleep, your eating, your
yeah
workouts. Like, let's work on all these other things first. And then maybe we can talk about what supplement you might need
yeah
or might help you with that sort of thing. Do you find that
that
happens with,
last that last 2% that might
yeah.
help you a little bit after doing X, Y, and Z first. 100%. Yeah, to me, I mean, I people ask me about supplements all the time. I mean, it's a very common thing, but to
Hmm.
me, it's okay. I recommend protein for most people just because of convenience.
Hmm.
To get enough protein in. I mean, you can definitely get enough protein from your food, right? But that's tough for most people. So that if you like pre-workout or some sort of like caffeinated drink, that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
you can do that. You don't have to have it. Maybe daily vitamins or greens to help get some micronutrients, and then maybe creatine. But that's something too down the road that even in my common person that I help, like it's not really that big of a deal to them at this moment to gain a ton of strength. That
Yeah.
we can get a little bit help with from creatine, and you already have to be consistent. So, like you already said, that I'm right on board with that. I think protein's the only one where I usually will be like, yeah, it's probably worth
Hmm.
pushing just because it is whether it's bars or powder or something, just because a lot of people struggle, unless you're eating a lot of cottage cheese and Greek yogurt and lean meat, like
Yeah.
it's gonna be tough,
It's tough.
to so
Protein is one of them that I almost don't consider it a supplement anymore because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like a
yeah.
food, right? Like
You're
it
right.
has calories, it has high quality protein, but I feel like the supplement thing is just it's conditioning is part of it because again, it's always being marketed, so people are always looking for that next thing.
Yeah,
And the creatine thing, it's very rare. I'm the same. It's very rare that most people that I work with would need it.
yeah,
It's like it can help, but in the stage of their journey, it's not even
yeah.
important. Like it's not even relevant
No,
at this stage. Like if
no,
you haven't been consistently weight training for, I'd say 5 to 10 years, like consistently, you definitely don't need to worry about creatine. I'd say.
no,
Yeah.
no, definitely not. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And
What?
even then,
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, even then, it's really only if you have big like strength goals and you're pushing yourself and it's been so consistent for years and years. It can give, and even then, like it's even. I remember being young with creatine, thinking, "Oh, it's like steroids." Not even close. Like it's just like this tiny little thing that can help give you a little more power output with all those
Yeah.
other things. So,
I think
anyways,
that the few times I have recommended, it's either it's been like a couple dads in their 40s that are just looking to build a little bit of muscle and just
yeah,
maintain and gain some strength. And that's pretty much it. Like I think
yep,
other than that, none of the moms I work with I've ever recommended to. Because the thing with creatine too, it's almost a double-edged sword because people will love it when it's working or when everything's working, but when it's not, it's almost like, okay, creatine is causing me to bloat. This is the
mm-hmm.
problem. So it's almost like we don't even have to worry about that. That's just another like
Yep,
factor
yep,
that's not even a part of this thing. Um, and it's funny we bring up protein shakes. I'd love to get your opinion, and I probably already know, but I had a client send me a message saying she saw a video on TikTok, and already I was like, and she was like, yeah, I know it's TikTok. And the person on TikTok was saying that their client was weight loss stalled because they kept drinking the same Premier protein shakes. And I was like, okay. But she was like, yeah, the person in the video said it was because the chemicals in the Premier protein shake that stalled the weight loss.
mm. Yeah.
What
I
are,
don't.
what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are initially that's stupid and doesn't, there's no like actual scientific backing to that.
Yeah.
Like the weight of the evidence, it comes down. You can talk about chemicals and things like that all day. It comes down to energy balance, which, eating less, consuming less than you're burning consistently. So
Mm,
maybe playing devil's advocate, maybe those protein shakes uh, affect behavior. And what I mean by that is maybe this person is drinking these Premier protein shakes and they automatically, once they drink it, their mind goes to, I need a large fry,
Mm.
or a big bag of potato chips with this. Okay. And then at that point, the behavior leads them to focus on those kinds of things. And then, well, that still comes down to energy balance, consuming too many calories. And so, sure, in that way, but directly, no, there's
Yeah.
no,
And that's what
there's
I told
at
her.
this, yeah,
Yeah. I'm like, it's no fault of your own. It's not my client's fault. It's like, this is part of the industry that we're fighting. Is this is it's a statement. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. So whether it doesn't
no,
matter what food it is. And then I had actually a similar conversation with another client. You know, he was talking about how someone told him that if you eat the same foods every day, your body's going to get stuck and it's not going to lose any more fat because it's used to the same foods. Almost like the muscle confusion argument, but with
yeah,
food. And I was like,
yeah, yeah,
literally, no, man. Like, this is not, I mean, some of the most consistent clients eat a lot of the same foods every day because they
yes,
choose to,
and
right? It's just,
yeah,
it
yeah,
makes the behaviors easier. And
yes.
so in this case, it's like if you mix it up too often, and I'd love to hear how you navigate clients with this too. Like, if you
Mhm.
try to get new meals and new recipes and all this stuff every other day, it makes it tougher to be
Mhm.
consistent. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it does depend on the individual, but yeah, my experience is, I mean, there's studies on this too. If you want to look at research that show, people that eat consistently very similar foods every single day, it's so much easier to sustain where you're at. Well, it makes sense logically because you know what to expect, you know the amount that you're eating, you know the vitamins and the minerals, you know how it makes you feel, you know how your behavior, how you respond behaviorally after eating those. It makes sense.
Mm,
um, I think with the right structure, with being really good with tracking and protein and sleep and water and all these different kinds of things, I think if people like food variety, that doesn't automatically mean, well, you're screwed. Because there's people that do that too. And I think people love extreme. I always say people love extreme lands, one or the other. Truth is, it's all context, it's all the individual, and it really just comes down to balance. And so if you like, for me, for instance, to be honest, I love food variety. I'm not the type of person that eat the same exact thing every day, and a lot of times not even close to the same thing, but I'm very aware of the amount that I'm eating. I'm very aware of all these other factors that give me the structure that allow me to sustain where I'm at, or improve or whatever like that.
yeah.
So I think it does depend on the individual, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But there are studies that show, like, yeah, if you're eating very similar things a lot of the days of the week, it makes it way easier on yourself.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah,
agree. Yeah, I mean, but also you've put in the work to get here too. I think that's one
right,
thing. I think that one
right,
piece
right,
that
right.
people miss is like they look at coaches or fitness influencers or whatever bodybuilders and they're like, okay, well, how did they get there? Because they're eating this and this and this. I'm like, well, they've put in years
Yeah,
of work to get in
yeah,
and learning and skill building, like tracking calories. I love it for people as a skill. I'm like, this is a skill building exercise where you can, track a plate of food. And the more you do that, you learn
hmm,
what, what the makeup is in a plate of food. Like I think my Fitness Pal, I signed up in like 2012. So it's like I'm at a 10-year anniversary of friggin' my Fitness Pal. I can look at plates of food confidently and be pretty close to within a
yeah,
calorie range. I'm sure you're the same with
yeah,
with
yeah,
the reps that we put in with this sort of
hmm,
stuff. It doesn't
hmm,
come, intuitively that, oh, we just know because we know. It's like, no, we've been through the mud with this kind of stuff.
right, right. Yeah, don't compare your step 1 or 2 to our step 20. Like we're just in a different. We put in the work for that. So you're exactly right, and I think that's where tracking, even if you do eat very similarly, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, I think for most people, tracking, at least going through some phases of it, like you said, is such a valuable experience, especially if you're trying to change your body composition, lose fat and stuff, just because it's a shot in the dark a lot of times. I mean, people underestimate, oh yeah, that's probably 100 calories at Starbucks drink and it's 350,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
an alcoholic drink, or oh yeah, I didn't track that handful of peanuts or whatever like that. And those add
Mm.
up. They do. I mean, it's sneaky and stuff. So, anyways,
Yeah,
yeah,
but that's the thing with those. It's not that it happened once. It's that that Starbucks drink. If you're getting that every day and you're off by 250 calories every day,
yes,
that's over 1,000 a week.
yep,
Multiply that over months. That's the culprit as to why you're not seeing any progress.
yeah,
It's a skill, like you said, like anything else.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
that's huge. What do you find with your current clients? Like what are some of their biggest struggles? Do they have a problem with tracking, or is it more like a workout thing? Because I know you said you help busy people as well.
Yeah. It depends. So from a food standpoint, I think there's kind of that belief of, oh man, some people are fine with tracking starting out, but some people get really up in arms about tracking at first because they're like, I can't be perfect with this. I have some of these um, more type A clients and stuff, which
Hmm.
is awesome. They make great clients, and I can be that kind of way too, so I can relate. But what I have to realize is they think they have to be perfect. Like I say, okay, like your goal is to eat 2,000 calories. They think if they're not hitting exactly 2,000, so framing it correctly. Honestly, typically what I see, and these are patterns I see, within a few weeks, even with those people that are really nervous about tracking, they start really getting like, okay, I have confidence to know like if I'm in the ballpark, I'm going to be in a good spot. Um, as far as other just typical struggles and patterns for people, I would say weekends tend to be probably the biggest thing that are challenging for people to work around. Also, just vacations or little trips or
Mm.
weddings or sicknesses. And so, honestly, from a coaching standpoint, I see big picture. I do this with hundreds of people. So I see, okay, you have a bad weekend sometime, not every weekend, but you have one bad weekend, you go out of town, you overeat a little bit. Biggest thing is get right back to it. Or if you get sick and you can't work out for, 5 days, just get right back to it. It's not that big of a deal, but to them, it feels like it's the end of the world. And what I've found is people typically, before working with us and stuff that's when they fall off because they think, well, I screwed everything up. Oh, well, it's all or nothing. And so really teaching them, no, like don't miss the forest for the trees here. Let's learn from that. If you messed up, how can we be better and just get you right back on track
Hmm.
and to get better for next time? And so that's something that we focus on a lot. But I think I forgot your original question. Basically, what is common with
Yeah.
struggles for people? Yeah.
Yeah.
Food wise, I would say weekends are typical, and then workout wise, I would say just if I'm helping desk job people with steps and workouts and stuff, that can always be a bit more of a challenge. And that's where it's kind of like as I've evolved and gotten better as a coach, rather than just yelling until I'm blue in the face, you got to get your workout done. It's only 30 minutes. It's like there's a point where it's like, yeah, that's important to push them, but at some point, if it's not working, then we adjust. And I've done
Yeah.
that actually even recently with clients. Like, okay, instead of working out 30, 35 minutes, 3, 4 days a week. Why don't we work out 6 days a week for 10 minutes a day? Do something. Do
Hmm.
something. The power of intention, going out of your way to take time to be active, it's powerful. And so that's been something to just kind of meeting people where they're at. I mean, that's my own little coaching
Yeah.
journey I'm working to, of course. But um, yeah, that's something too. I think that it's the all or nothing thing, I think, is the
Hmm.
root of all. Like, oh, if I can't do an hour long intense workout, then what's the point?
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be that way.
It's
So,
the overarching theme, I think, for most people, right? They're either all in or they're not in at all. And I think that
yep.
just it stems from marketing, programming, what they're used to, what they've tried in the past. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go on a diet. So they're all in on the diet until they're not. And then it's just okay, well, they're out of it until they're in
Mhm.
it again. And it becomes this cyclical thing where I've seen it with a few people. I won't name names, but I've seen year after year. It's like, okay, well, they're going to cut. Okay, cool. And then the winter comes, they're going on a bulk. Okay, cool. And then, but after years, it's like you either look the same or arguably your body composition is worse. Like you've
Worse,
gained
yeah.
more body fat because like the bulk is just an excuse to be off your diet for
Yeah,
however
yeah,
many
yeah,
months
yeah.
of the year.
Uh-huh.
When it comes to um, vacations, weddings, things like that, I'd love to know your coaching philosophy because mine is very just I'm not going to bug you. You know, if you want to do workouts while you're on vacation, cool. For a wedding, weddings, birthdays, anniversaries, I'm like, just go. You know, big picture, right? Go and enjoy the hell out of it. Come back tomorrow and we just get back on track. To me, it's not a big deal. I'm curious how you approach things like that.
Yeah, it's a very similar mindset. I think it does depend on the individual for me who I'm helping. So for some people, to me, I typically try and like lay out a good plan or a realistic expectation for them to stick to so they don't fall into all or nothing. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, what I found, let's say someone goes to a wedding, has a wedding coming up on Saturday, it's with a bunch of friends, there's drinks, there's food, it's buffet, whatever, like that. To them, a lot of these people that I'm helping, it's like, okay, if they're trying to eat 1,600 calories per day and they go over that at all, then well, may as well go to 3,000, right? All or nothing again. And
Yeah.
so how do we mitigate that, but still allow them to have fun? So why don't we just do 2,000 as that? So it's a higher cap. They feel good about it. I
Hmm.
still want them to track, but at the same time, they don't need to be neurotic about it. So it's
Hmm.
again, find that balance. I think giving them realistic expectations and structure on that, I think is important. I think giving them little tricks and tips on like, okay, like maybe like make the wedding meal your main meal of the day. And then before that, let's focus on some veggies and some fruit and some like low calorie protein to prepare for that. Drink a bunch of water. Let's get a lot of steps in here and there, stuff like that. But overall, the key is like, okay, how can we balance staying on track as much as we can, but then
Hmm.
also having fun and realizing like what you're talking about. So overall, I'm completely on board with that. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
let's enjoy it and then just make sure we have a good plan and see the big picture here. But
Yep.
oftentimes that's typically kind of how I approach it is depends on the individual, depends on time frame, depends on what they're doing, depends on what they've done, their
Yeah.
personality, their behaviors, if they beat themselves up, if they go over by 10 calories, right, on their daily, just depends. And so we just kind of sit down and make a game plan. But I'm very much about like, yeah, go enjoy yourself. I always say like it's kind of morbid, but we could die tomorrow. So it's like what like, and some people take it too far the other way, like, well, may as well eat whatever, right? So
Yeah.
there's a balance, of course, balance. But
Yeah.
anyways, a little bit of a tangent, but that's kind of how I usually approach it with people. If they're on like a vacation, it's a longer time period. We usually just set up like just some simple goals that they can still make a little progress.
Hmm.
I always say, some weeks you'll sprint forward, other weeks you'll walk forward, other weeks you'll crawl forward, and other weeks you'll get dragged forward. But the key is you still move forward,
Nice.
and keep up the momentum that way. So, maybe it's simply getting 7,000 steps and drinking enough water on vacation for someone. That's a win, and that's going to help them make a little progress. And
I
so,
love that.
yeah, so that's kind of how I approach it on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Anyone listening to this is what coaching is, ladies and gentlemen. It depends. It depends on a lot of things. Like if two clients are going on vacation, one of them's going, backpacking through Europe, and the other one's going to a resort to lay down all day, they're going to get two different approaches because one of them's
Mm-hmm.
super active. They have more flexibility with food. The other one isn't moving as much. So what's the approach there? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what it comes down to. And is each person is taken to an individual approach of like, okay, this is specifically what you need versus, whatever other clients are going on vacation or what events are coming up, which is huge. And I think that's why your clients are seeing success because you're taking them through like what they would need in their situation.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think that's I think yeah, it all comes down to the individual, and I had something else and I lost my train of thought. So, anyways,
It'll come back to you. Yeah.
I'll see if it comes back. But yeah, yeah,
When it comes to it's on topic. When it comes to alcohol and losing body fat,
yeah. Mhm.
how do you approach that with clients? I know you're gonna say it depends, but like for someone who's just a regular, say, wine drinker a few times a week, do you have them log it? Do you ask them to reduce it? How do you help them balance it to get away from the all or nothing as well?
Yeah, I don't usually ask them to reduce it. I ask them to look at, okay, let's lay out what our goals are and see that, and then let's lay out what it takes to get there, and then how can we fit that within there. So we talk so much about balance. At the end of the day, there is going to be some sacrifice in this journey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there has to be. I mean, you have to have structure, be diligent, and be consistent. Now, it's not nearly as much sacrifice as most people think, especially with the right mindset structure. Like we're talking about balance. However, it doesn't mean, like I think sometimes people don't align their actions with expectations. So, oh, I can drink wine and lose weight, okay, cool. But then they also have the nachos. They also have 3 glasses of wine. They also have dessert after. They also have, something right, early the next morning brunch and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to look at the big picture. So, anyways, if someone's like that in the situation and it's somewhat of a priority for them, then we prioritize. I definitely have them log it. I definitely make it easier on themselves. And if you can find a lower calorie option, you have a glass of wine for 300 calories versus 200 calories. If you're not extremely like picky about the exact type of wine, that you're having for the 300 calories, of course choose a lower one. If people like drinking, whatever, err on the side of, having hard alcohol with a diet drink, save calories that way. Have it be 100 calories per serving as opposed to 300 or 400
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is. White Claws and stuff like that. Focus on those things, put those in beforehand, and then really just kind of structure your day around that. Focus a lot on protein, focus a lot on good nutrients so you feel good. And this is what I was going to say. This just came back to me. It all
Nice.
connects. Perfect. So, something that I talk about with vacations and drinking and all this different kinds of stuff, trying to help prepare people is like, don't do this. I mean, you shouldn't be doing this out of obligation at all. Do this because you want to feel better. Go back to your purpose on why you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, if I'm helping someone, let's say for 6 weeks, and they have this vacation on the seventh week, they're going to Hawaii and they're going to sit a lot and lay on the beach. Okay, awesome. They're not going to feel good just going reckless. Like they physically will not feel good. They mentally won't feel good. And so I try and reframe it. And that's a lot of coaching too, is just reframing things, giving them different points of view of thinking, look, you're not going to feel good if you do this. Will take away from your vacation if you go
Mm-hmm.
rogue, completely different. You've been eating 1,500 calories with me per day, and now you're trying to eat 3,000 and have a ton of drinks. You're going to feel horrible. So think about it in a way of like, how can I balance this and still have fun and feel good? And have that good energy that we want to, because no one wants to be just laying around being sluggish all day. I don't think anybody would ever raise their hands and say, yeah, I want to feel like that. Relaxing, sure, but not like feel crappy. So, anyways,
Yeah.
connecting that back to the alcohol, because it all kind of comes together. I think realizing like, okay, how can I still feel good on this journey and make progress and all that kind of stuff. So if wine is a priority for you, budget around it, and put it into your food log ahead of time. And sure, it might mean that you have to, calorie wise, cut back a little bit on some of your drinking. Because, like I said, there is some sacrifice, and this is just the way that it is. But you can be strategic and still enjoy yourself. Because the fact of the matter is, I mean, you look at energy balance, if you have, let's say, just play a numbers game, if you're trying to eat 1,500 calories per day, and you drink 700 calories of that versus of wine,
Yeah.
it can work, but man, you won't feel good. Talk about not feeling good, and then you have low protein, and you just don't. Your health isn't as good, and so instead of thinking about it that way, it's okay. Well, how can I have 200, 250 calories of wine on that day, and then have the rest of my day filled with good nutrients and stuff like that? So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I approach it, and I think that's something I'm like, look, there is sacrifice still,
Yeah.
and there has to be. So
Yeah. Well, what got you to this point, that the individual, right? It's not, you can't just keep doing the same things over and over again
right,
because you want to change. With the with alcohol, actually, I want to go back to a mini story about myself. What you said about like feeling crappy heading into vacation, so or
hmm
at the vacation. So when I went to Vegas with my wife a few years back, pre-COVID, and I was like dieting down to like lean up for Vegas with pool bars and stuff like that. I'm like, okay. But then I got there, and after 2 days of eating, I blew up because my body was like missing carbs for so many days, and I felt like shit. Like, so I'm like, never again am I
yep,
dieting this hard into a vacation,
yeah,
to go on vacation, to eat freely, and then just feel physically just
yeah, yeah,
bloated and crappy. So that 100% stuck with me once you said that. I'm like, yeah, that was me. That was the mistake that
yeah,
I've made in the past too. And then with alcohol, I think part of it is don't put so much emphasis on the need to drink to have a good time, right?
hmm
And I know I speak of that from my chair in my basement at the moment, but still, it's you don't need to have X amount of beverages. You don't need to drink all day on vacation. It doesn't have to be that way for you to enjoy the vacation. So it's like take the emphasis away from sometimes the food, sometimes the alcohol. And like if you're going to somewhere like Hawaii or Cuba, like someone where you can just lay on a beach and just enjoy it, look around, enjoy where you're
yeah,
at, enjoy the
yeah,
company you have instead of worrying about, oh, there's this buffet and that buffet and open bar. And it just, that's going to make it harder when all your focus is on the food and beverage.
yep,
All your focus is going to be on the food and beverage. And I feel like it takes away from everything else in the vacation
hmm
for sure.
yeah. It's a yeah, alcohol's and I don't need to go too much into like the actual act of drinking outside of like the fat loss component that
Mm-hmm.
I can specialize in, but like something I've been talking about recently too, like with a lot of clients, because I've have these conversations all the time. It's like you know, you can have the alcohol and stuff like that, and I drink too, you know, and
Mm,
but I think you enjoy it more, in my opinion. You don't do it all the time, constant. Like it's more of a fun event, you know.
yeah.
You're buffering that dopamine response that way. And what's cool about kind of bringing this full circle with fitness and with nutrition and just getting healthier and feeling better is all these things start working together, and so you can start channeling your energy towards, man, I will have some drinks tonight, but I don't need to drink right now. It's 1 p.m. and we're on vacation. Let me
Mm,
go on a walk. Let me, you know, go get some good coffee or something, and go maybe do a little light workout, or just go have like, you know, some fruit and hang out with my family. And then I can have that tonight. But and just because you have good energy, it just
yeah.
all builds on itself. And then the more energy you have, the more you want to work out. The more you work out and eat better, the more results you get. The more results you get, it's just this positive motivation cycle.
Mm,
But people get really caught up in the negative motivation cycle of all that kind of stuff.
you
So
know, like
anyways,
I can't have, or versus look what I can do
yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah. And then relying on the feeling of, oh, I need to feel motivated, so then I'll start. Once I'm motivated again, I'll start. You hear that all the time. It's like
Yeah.
you're gonna be, if that's how you're basing your actions and your response, you're gonna be stuck, because you might start and then you're gonna stop. Because guess what? John and I don't always feel motivated. Heck
Mm-mm.
no. I'm supposed to go squat after this. I don't want to go squat. I'm gonna do it anyway though, because it's
Yeah.
important. And you go back to your purpose, and it becomes, then at that point you dive into your purpose enough and build that routine, it becomes more discipline oriented, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. I have a fight with my a mental battle with my alarm clock every morning. But
Yeah.
it's across the room. I have to get up to
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
So it's
Hmm.
like once I get up, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to the gym now because I'm up and it's 5:30 in the morning. And what else am I going to do? Clothes are
Right.
laid out. The pregame routine is already set for me from the night
Yep.
before. Whether I'm motivated or not is irrelevant. The motivation comes from, getting the warm up in, getting some good music in, getting to the gym. Once I'm there, there's no way I'm not doing the workout because what else
Yep.
am I going to do there? Right. It's kind of like it's the mental battles I think we have with ourselves that the more you can win them, the easier this gets. But
Hmm.
it's can't let motivation become this excuse of, oh, I'm not motivated. I think everyone's motivated to a certain extent. It just depends on where their priorities lie and kind of where they are in life at the same time too. It's like they say, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, great. So you're motivated. Why do you want to lose 20 pounds? And you kind of get deeper with them there, but it's the action that they're missing to do it. So is it the motivation? Is it the priority? Is it time management? Is it accountability? Like there's so many other things involved, I think, that
Hmm.
maybe you get overlooked or not talked about enough on Instagram. I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's, as you know, that's so much of what we do. I always say, I'm like, look, this isn't so much about information. Yeah, we're going to culminate and put together these systems, done for you things, so you don't have to try and research and spend all this time. You'll save you a bunch of time. Sure, information, that's great, really important, especially if you trust us and you know, okay, like this will work
Yeah.
for me. You trust, you have that trust, which is really, really important. Putting that aside though for a second, information is everywhere. It's
Yeah.
all over the internet. That's not, we're not, John and I aren't here to create some sort of new thing that you've never heard before. It's a secret thing that you only have to pay us. You can only find out if you pay. That's not how this is. We put all this stuff together with, like we talked about, in saving you so much time. But at the end of the day, it comes down to someone in your corner holding you accountable, keeping you on track, encouraging you, getting you outside of your own head, giving you mindset skills and these habits and these patterns that you can then take and then eventually go out on your own. That's what we're in the business of. We're not in the business of telling you some new information that you've never seen before,
Is there
because
any
it's
information that
all
you
out
know?
there.
I was gonna say, do you have any information that we don't know? We're hiding it behind a paywall.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, but that, yeah, that's exactly right. I
Yeah.
am on board. I think people get really hung up on that, like,
Yeah.
you know, with, oh, I just need to know this, I need to know that, when the
Yeah.
real issue is they need accountability and support to keep them going, because they could find all the stuff they need on the internet, but it's, why haven't they been able to do it? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and there's a reasons why we have jobs, and it's, this stuff's not easy for people. So
Bingo. Yeah, I mean it's information porn, right? You just want to read and read and watch and read and just intake, but you don't do anything with it. Like to me, you can make a ton more progress with less information if you just sat
yes.
there and waited for all the information. And I went through that phase with with like building a business, like
Mhm.
pre-pandemic. I've had coaches and mentors in the past, but it got to a point where I was like, I was buying book after book after book after book, and I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not doing
Yeah.
anything with these books. Like I'm reading them great, but if I'm
Yeah.
not implementing what I'm learning, then what's the
Mhm.
friggin' point? So
There's
if you're listening to this and like you're listening to this podcast and other podcasts and YouTube channels and Instagram pages, take action. Just culminate from one source maybe and just take action
yeah.
from there for
Yeah.
at least a month. Then think of a next step. Like don't take in any more information than you need to, because it's just
Mhm.
going to keep you stuck because you're going to get conflicting information. And then before you know it, you're even more confused than when you started.
And like if you don't trust fully what you're doing, then you're like, okay, I try, maybe I'll try this or whatever, and then it's just like if you don't have that conviction, like, okay, this is gonna work for me. As soon as life happens, because it will on your
Mm,
journey, it's easy to give up. And so, but that's I feel like it takes a level of maturity might be a harsh word, but kind of a level of maturity, self-awareness, dropping your ego a bit. And I had to do this in my own, like you talked about, business, same thing, asking for help. It's okay.
yeah.
We all need help with certain things. Whether it's with mental health or business or family stuff or marriage stuff or whatever it is, financial. So ask for help because there's people that know what they're doing that like can save you a lot of time. And sometimes it does take just dropping your ego a little bit and be like, I need help. And you'll realize, man, it's going to save you a lot of time, heartache, finances, yeah, everything. You go down the list, right?
100% agree, man. Yeah, I've
That's
asked for
where
help.
coaches, yeah.
Yeah, as you said, as their coaches come in, and I've asked for help in anything I need help with. I don't think I got to a point where I'm like, oh, I want to figure this out for myself, because I'll do it and then I'll like I just wasted a bunch of time and I'm nowhere. So whether it's
Mhm.
fitness or business or whatever it is, and now I'm busier than ever. I don't want to spend time creating my own program. I need someone to hold me accountable to get my workouts done or my nutrition protocol and things like that. Like I have my coach, I have my business code. Like I have things in place for me to make sure that I'm making progress in the areas of life I do too. And I know, we both have, you have a kid, I have kids, life gets a little bit more hectic when little ones are involved and dependence and stuff. And asking for help for that is one thing that I think, I don't know if people are just scared to do it, or maybe they've been burned in the past.
Mhm.
Um, and this might be this might be a controversial question. You don't have to answer it, but and I'll tell you my answer. Who's more stubborn in asking for help, men or women?
Men.
Yeah, nice. Me too. I agree, 100.
Yeah.
percent It's
Yeah.
the male ego. What do you think?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I can relate. It's funny because I'll talk to people, to see if they're a good fit and see if we both want to work with each other and if they would be a good fit for the coaching that I do. And typically I get more resistance when someone decides not to from a male. And that
Mm,
just what's funny is it like will frustrate me to be honest, but then I'm like, well, I'm kind of the same way. I get it, I get it.
yeah,
So there's a level of yeah, you just got I think it's a pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality. I think that's how we've been conditioned.
yeah.
And I don't think that's always necessarily a bad thing because it's like, get things done, figure it out.
Mm,
But the thing you got to ask yourself is like if you've tried to get whether it's with fitness or business or whatever else, right? You tried on your own. There's a point where you're just hurting yourself and hurting people around you if you're not being like, okay, I got to lay my ego down and get some help on this because you're it's actually become selfish, and I can say that because I've seen this. So I get it, and again, I'm all for like let's take control of as much as we can in our life. There's so much that we can't control, but of the
mm,
things that we can, like our health and stuff, I'm all for that. But if you've tried and you haven't been able to do it, that's when you kind of got to look in the mirror. And I think it's actually like one of the strongest things you can do is ask for help. So,
I agree.
well, yeah.
It's no, it's a superpower. I think it's something that people are scared to do, or they have the ego. Is And I love the bootstrapping is necessary, like you said, but it gets to a point of like if you've tried, but you've tried multiple times, like it becomes like a year after year after year thing. Something needs to be different this time, and it's not a different diet, and it's not a different supplement, it's not a different workout program. It's literally asking for help. Finding
Yep.
someone that you trust that can take you through the process, getting away from like random YouTube videos and random program downloads, because those things
Mm-hmm.
aren't asking for help, right? As we said earlier, information is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Information isn't the difference maker for the majority of people. It's having someone help you navigate life struggles. Like anyone I've worked with, there has been a struggle in their lives. A challenge has popped up.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't matter
Oh, yeah.
who it is. Of the almost 100 people I've worked with in the past year and a bit, there's gonna be something that comes up. I've had something come up in my life in the last year and a bit. The shit's hard, right? But you have someone that you can bounce ideas off of or just vent to or whatever it might be. That's, to me, is priceless, because it's
Yeah.
like, okay, that person helped me through this and helped me towards my goals even when I didn't want to or it was too hard to. That's coaching. I think that's the biggest difference maker for people.
Yep. Yep. And just continually helping you make it a priority in your life, because it needs to be a priority, and having that external help, accountability, and encouragement can really help you with that, because it's easy to lose sight of that it is a priority and it needs to be a
Mm-hmm.
priority when life happens, especially when all you've ever done before is, you start a health journey, and then life happens and you fall off. You got to get out of that cycle. So that's, yeah, 100%
I
on
love
all
that.
that. Yep.
Yeah, big thing. We're close to wrapping up time. I got a hard stop soon. I love it if you can leave us with a golden nugget. It could be literally anything, any topic, whatever you want to put you on the spot.
Yeah. Yeah. I would probably say the thing that pops in my head first is just imperfect action. Um, just start.
Nice.
Stop. Uh, the reason why I say this, let me organize my thoughts better. The reason why I say this is because I have clients, they think they need to be perfect or whatever, and actually perfection in the aim to be perfect literally is the only thing that's holding them back. And they either don't start, or when they do start, as soon as they mess up, they fall off and they don't do anything at all. Again, all or nothing. That's all rooted in that. But just go. You mess up, you learn from it. That's important. Don't just ignore it. Learn from it. Move on. Give yourself grace. I think. I mean, I have a client right now. She is she she is the perfect example of imperfect action. Like she does not do that good of a job with being consistent with workouts and stuff. Like we struggle with very communicative. She's awesome. She works a crazy job. She's a crazy life, but she still shows up every day and does something, and she's seeing crazy changes because of that. And so I think we need to get out of this mindset. So many of, maybe you that's listening or whatever, need to get out of the mindset that like, oh, I got to get everything figured out and I got to
Mm,
go 100% all in order to start and make this work. And that's not true. That's not true. Just start, get, on a good program, maybe with a coach, shameless plug for
mm-hmm.
either of us, and have someone to hold you accountable, and just start, and you'll figure it out as you go. But what you'll realize is there's never going to be a perfect time.
I
And
love it.
so you just have to start. So that's what I would say. I think I see a lot of people holding themselves back
Mm-hmm.
with. So,
Perfect, man. Yeah, and this episode's coming out as you're listening to this. It's the first week of September, so it's a new chapter for a lot of people here
yeah.
in Ontario. School starting up. It's parents' arguably favorite time of year because they get their
Yeah.
little bit of their time back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it really does. It comes down to action. It doesn't have to be perfect. I haven't been perfect over the last 2 years at least. I'm sure, Nick, you're kind of in the same boat at times.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
just
No.
do what you can
Yeah.
and move on, and that's
Yeah.
literally it. Yeah, man, let's let everyone know where they can find you, and I'll put the links in the show notes as well.
Yeah, main place is Instagram. That's my biggest spot. So it's just Nick Blaine Fitness. At that, you'll see my ugly mug on there. And oh, one other thing I was just gonna say is, don't, if you're listening, first week of September, maybe in September, October, don't wait till January. Do
Oh
it
my
now.
god,
Do
yeah,
it
thank
now.
you.
Set yourself up for success now. And that we're obviously, I hope you know at this point, we're not saying you can't go to holiday parties, you can't have eggnog, you can't have fun, but figure this out now. So then you go to January and you're like, oh, this is freaking easy. You get
Nice.
to that point. You can do that right now. Don't wait. Don't use the excuse of I just gotta wait till after the holidays. That mindset will keep you stuck in a very ugly cycle. So do it now.
I love
Take
that you said
action.
that. Yeah, that's an even better golden nugget. I love that. Yeah, man. Nick, thanks so much for taking the time. It was great chatting with you and dropping the knowledge bombs that you did for us. And yeah, we'll talk to you again soon, man.
Cool. Appreciate you
Perfect.
having me.